In the past 5 years, I founded a global nonprofit that's now reaching hundreds of thousands of people with tools for mental health and resilience. Created and built from scratch on a zero budget as a volunteer, the first ever global training program for service missionaries, scaling it from a local pilot to a full international system that now trains thousands of people worldwide. This year, I've recorded and interviewed over 50 podcast guests on my show, the Maddie McCurdy program that you're listening to right now, and written more than 40 blogs, and just finished developing our nonprofit self-help app that's going to launch this year. I'm excited for it, helping young adults build habits of success. We've had the opportunity to partner with massive charity organizations to expand the work, and within all that, I got married to the love of my life this year as well. And yet, this path to get here started with back surgery at the age of 20 that derailed all my goals, my dreams. A year of waiting in pain, not having answers, COVID hitting right as I needed another surgery, and being completely broken and jobless for months. And everything I thought I was supposed to do really falling apart, leaving me with a lot of questions. And I know a lot of people deal with that, and I'm not unique in any way. But I want to compress everything I've learned through the sacrifices, the surrenders, and the unexpected redirection into this message for you today. For years now, I've had the habit of writing down lessons as they've come in my life, in my journal, in my phone notes, or just in the quiet moments of prayer, so I wouldn't forget what God and life was teaching me in the middle of all the mess and the chaos of life. And every once in a while, I shared the biggest ones, and so today, it's 25 lessons gained in 2025. Number one, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that ratio. Listen more than you speak. I heard this from an amazing mentor of mine, and I've tried to apply this ever since. I think, honestly, we spend so much time consuming information, whether that's on TikTok, on social media. You're consuming information right now, and we rarely listen to the knowledge being dropped around us. Now, I hope that if you're listening to this, you feel like you're getting some knowledge, but just think about all the people around you in your church, in your community, in your job, in your different circles that are people with valuable expertise, knowledge. I guarantee you they have jobs. And I get it. Not every person out there is worth listening to. I've met plenty that you just need to kind of disregard what they're telling you. But there is so much good information out there, and especially for young people, trying to figure out what path they want to take in their journey, what purpose they want to have in their life. What better way to gain that than to go to the people around you who know you and want to help and have experiences they can share. You don't have to take all of it from them. You don't have to listen to everything they say. They don't have to define you or your path. But we should be listening to them. And I think that's one of the reasons I started this podcast is I wanted to go on a journey of understanding and listening and gain as much information from the past, I guess is the best way to put it, right? We hear that all the time that, history repeats itself. But I don't think we really take it to heart because we really think that our new chapter is unique. And it's really not. It's just it's a new chapter with slightly different edits, right? Slightly different versions, maybe a slight character change here or there, but the story is about the same. And so if we can learn from that history, we can be so much better off. And I love what that mentor said when I had him on the podcast about we have 2 ears, 1 mouth, use it in that ratio. Number 2, at the end of your life, you won't wish for fewer cool stories to tell. I heard this from Alex Hormozy. He kind of, at least that's where I've heard it from. I don't know if he got it from somewhere else, but that's kind of the perpetrator of this message. And I think it puts life in a perspective that is freeing. Sometimes we worry so much about our here right now, and we think that I've got to become some great person in the future. I got to do X, Y, and Z, or we get nervous like, hey, I don't know if I do this now, is this going to affect my future? Who cares? Honestly, like, you need to be going out and exploring and doing and trying things. Like, at the end of the day, people's opinions of you, what they think of you, how they act around you, like, there's so few people that actually matter when it comes down to it. And I think people truly worry that they're going to mess something up now and they don't take opportunities that are going to pay off in the long run. And so we can get a very short-sighted view in our quest to find what this purpose is in our life or our gain of accomplishments that we really forget about the long-term difference it's going to make. And I had a person on the show, great couple. They talked about how their parents told them, if you have a dollar, go make a memory. And they did that. And they're so glad they did because they don't have the opportunity to travel and go make memories now. And so I think take that to heart. When you look back on your life, you don't want to say that you didn't do what you wanted to do. You don't want to hold regrets. Go take life by the reins and make it happen. Number 3, make impact your purpose, not validation. And these next 3, 4, and 5 are very similar. They kind of float the same purpose. So I'll start with this one. Make impact your purpose, not validation. We live in a digital age where views, clicks, and attention is viewed as value. But is it? That's the real question. Is that really value? I'd argue that it's not. I think if you are getting attention because you're giving something to someone else, then it is. But we perceive value now as the attention you're given, the clicks, the views, how many followers you have on social media, and it really warps what impact really means. There are so many people out there who are faking it, who are providing absolutely nothing because they want that attention. And you need to be looking for the opportunities to bring people real value. I was talking to a friend of mine who was trying to figure out their purpose. And I think it's hard to know how you can make an impact. And so that leads me to this next one. If you're chasing validation to fill your insecurities, you'll always come up empty. I think these lead hand in hand. That if your goal is to feel like people like you, to have a ton of followers on your Instagram or your social media, to have people give you attaboys every time you do something, it's going to be really fleeting because you may get it. You may have that one TikTok pop off and you get 1 million views, it goes viral. But for what? For like a day? People know who you were for a day? Like that's great. But are you going to be able to do that again and again and again? And they don't even remember. They don't remember who you were. It's about the value and the impact you can bring. And are you enjoying it? I think that's the bigger thing. But when you're chasing that validation, whether it's from your friends, I've seen this a lot actually, where people have a close circle around them of people who really care about them. And they are looking for, because they know those people will always be there for them in their life because they always have been, they take them for granted while they go seek the validation of others, hoping that that will fill a void in their life, and it won't. And so I would tell you, be careful as you work towards your goals and as you try to figure out what you're doing. Look at your insecurities and ask yourself, are you trying to solve them with other people's approval? It's not the answer. It's not the solution. You need to identify what those insecurities are and ask yourself, why do I have that insecurity? Why am I so worried about that? Why does that make such an impact in my life? And then figure out how you can solve that, because someone else isn't going to be able to solve that. And even if they do, it's going to be short term. It can be taken away just like that. If you are worried about being in a relationship, and maybe that's your insecurity in life, you're worried that you're never going to be able to find a significant other, and that's what you're insecure about. And so you start trying to find that significant other to fill that void, that insecurity you have, because you don't feel loved or you don't feel like you're good enough. And if you had that person in your life, then you would feel like you don't have that insecurity. So I need this significant other to make myself feel better about, I don't like myself, I'm not loved, whatever, right? Well, you find that significant other, whatever it may be, and you might be very desperate for it because you want to fill that insecurity so bad because you're tired of feeling like you hate yourself or that nobody likes you or no one loves you. And so you find that person out of desperation, which is never a good, never a good spot to be at. You never want to get with someone out of desperation, you know. And so now you've got this person, maybe you date for a few months. Well, crap hits the fan. Now suddenly life isn't as you expected. And guess what? Now they leave and you're still lonely. You still think that no one loves you. because now that insecurity that was filled by that person, that validation, has disappeared. It's fleeting. And so you need to figure out why you feel that way, why you have that insecurity, and resolve it. You know, if it's that you don't think anyone loves you, why do you think that? Well, it's probably because you don't like yourself, truthfully. And you need to figure out why you don't like yourself. And that then solves the problem, not the validation of others. So I'm going to go on to number 5. If you're not willing to put in the work someone else did, don't envy the life they live. It's really easy to compare ourselves. And I think that's where a lot of insecurities come from, is the comparison. We see online, we see in our community, in other people's lives. And so it's really easy to start wanting and envying what someone else did. I watched this podcast with Shaquille O'Neal, and he talks about how there's professional envy and personal envy. Professional envy, looking at what somebody has and going, you know what, I'm going to work to beat them. I want that. I want to be the greatest. I want to be the best. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's motivation. That's passion. That's a desire to do what it takes to get what somebody has. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think when you have a personal envy, when you're jealous of the life someone else is living, but you don't really know what they did to get that outcome, you just want that outcome, and you don't really have the desire to go do any of the work to get that, that's when you run into problems. Life is all about sacrifice. And somewhere along the lines, I think we've forgotten that life requires sacrifice. Things worth having require sacrifice. Otherwise, it wouldn't mean anything to us. And you see this a lot when people get something without working for it, they don't really care. They don't care about what they were given, rarely. And so be willing to put in the effort, the work that it takes. I have to remind myself this all the time. It's hard. It's hard growing anything. It's hard growing this podcast. It's hard growing my blog and getting up and writing that email. There's been so many times it's Sunday night and my email comes out Monday morning. I've just had dinner with the family, with the relatives, and my wife is getting into bed, and she wants me to come get into bed with her. And I'm like, it's late, gonna get my Monday started off just right. And then I look down and realize, crap, I haven't written that email. And then part of me wants to just go to bed and like let it lie. And all the excuses come. It's only a few subscribers. You have, it's not that big a deal. And but I have to remind myself that it's like, do I want the results? Do I want the subscribers? Do I want people to have an impact? Does it matter to me? And if the answer is yes, then I've got to do what it takes to get there, and be willing to sacrifice the time. And I'm not saying you have to, let's just stop there with that one. Okay. So number 6, there are people all around you who can help you push your goals forward. Connect with them. I feel like mentorship is really underrated. And I really feel like mentorship matters and no one uses it. We have age groups who are growing more distant, and we see that all the time. They're growing more distance with themselves, with their own age groups. They're growing more distance with the older generation. I don't think that's new. I think we see all the time, like, you don't think your parents know what they're talking about. It was different. They're old. They didn't even have phones when they were kids. Their parents were literally like living in the Great Depression. Like, how can they possibly understand what we're going through? And I think to a certain extent, they can't. But once again, going to the first one, history repeats itself. And whether they've experienced the exact same challenges you have, they have experienced a version of that challenge in a different format, but they've had to gain the skills to overcome it. And so if you can go to that person and truly put yourself aside, realize that, you have knowledge they probably don't understand, but go, I'm just going to learn. I'm just going to absorb that information. And it requires you to put your ego aside. It requires you to have a little less pride, because they're probably going to treat you like you're a little silly at times. They're going to probably question your intelligence. They're probably going to make you feel like they think you're stupid. They're going to treat you like you're younger, whatever it is. You got to put that aside and try to figure out what's worth hearing from this person. And I'm not saying that every person is a gem worth listening to. They definitely aren't. But young people, I think, tend to discount the experience and what experience offers. And some of that's great because, I think being naive pushes you to do things that maybe you wouldn't have done before. When you have a little more knowledge, you tend to be a little more fearful because you know what you can lose and can't lose. When you have nothing to lose, why does it matter, right? But mentorship is so important, and there's so much out there. Go find someone who's been down the path. If you're going to start a business, why not find someone who's done that exact same business or something very close to it to then guide your path? You will maneuver through challenges so much easier, and that's been something I'll be honest, has been such a help as I've grown this podcast, as I've grown those other operations, the international training program or the nonprofit. The people who are in those industries that I've been able to connect with and work with and just spend time with and ask questions about have changed the game for me. And they're able to help me navigate these projects so much faster. And when I have a question, I can go to them. I have to do the work too, but I can go to them and they can give me advice that no one else could. So find those mentors in your life. If you don't know what you want to do, go find someone to just ask them what they do, and then they become a mentor and you can decide whether you want to go from there. Number 7, a bottle of water costs $2.50 at a gas station and $7 at an airport. Be the airport water bottle. I've thought about this a lot recently. It's hard whenever you're doing something different than everybody else. And I want to speak directly to people who are trying to grow a business, start a podcast, be a creator on social media, anything that requires you to branch out of the system, right? Maybe you're not going to college. Maybe you're not just going to go get a job. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to do that, that's great. But I want to speak to the people who are genuinely trying to start something new or grow something on their own or branching out from the norm, because you will be highly underappreciated. You will put in long hours. You'll spend a lot of time thinking about things no one else is thinking about. When you try to express yourself to them, they'll look at you like you're crazy because their life revolves around waking up at 9, getting home at 5, putting on the TV, chilling with the wife and the homeboys or whatever they do, going to the bar, drinking, and then they start it all over again. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's a simple life. It's a good life for some. But if you're trying to start something big, you're going to be underappreciated because no one's going to value the work you're doing off the clock, on the clock. And I would tell you, go where people value what you're doing and they understand your life. I think that makes the biggest difference. When people understand your life, you find a community, you find people who can help you become who you're trying to become. And that can work in a positive direction and a negative direction. If you hang around the bar and a bunch of druggies all day, you're probably going to become a drunk druggie. If you hang around a bunch of entrepreneurs and business people who are growing and succeeding, you're probably going to become an entrepreneur or business person who's succeeding. It's just how it works. So go somewhere where you're of value. Don't be that $2.50 gas station water bottle. It's still water. It's the same water bottle. But if you go to the airport, that dollar costs $7 to $8, and I'm going to pay for it every time because I've left mine at home. Number 8, finding your passion is mostly a myth. Rarely are we instantly obsessed. Everything worth doing has parts you dislike. Do it enough, and you'll either start enjoying it or get good enough not to hate it. This is something I've had to think about time and time again while building my business and organizations and this podcast. I love ideas and conceptualizing things. A little drink of water there. I love ideas and conceptualizing things. But I have to remind myself that at the end of the day, work is work. And what do I mean by that? Is there's a glamour to having a new idea. There's an excitement to an idea of doing something. And we often fall into the trap of getting enamored with our ideas, getting excited about the idea, but then not realizing that there is a lot of work entailed with that idea. There's a lot of work that follows. And I fall into the trap a lot when I get part of the work and when I get to that part of the work that I don't want to do anymore. And for example, I'll give you an example. I hate scheduling podcast guests on the show. It's really hard. You have to think about who you want to have on. I can think of people who I want to have on, but then you got to reach out and they have to respond and you have to, you have to maneuver all the scheduling. And yes, I've been able to start to offload that. But at the very beginning of the podcast, that was all on me. And for a long time, I just wanted to do the parts I enjoy, which was sitting down, talking with the guest, recording. And so I spent time trying to figure out how do I get out of doing this? Or, hey, I'm going to spend more time working on this part of my podcast because I hate doing the scheduling of the guest. And what I realized quickly was you don't get to do the fun part of talking to the guest if you never schedule them. And so I had to buckle up, pull my pants up by the whatever the term is, pull my pants up, buckle up, whatever you want to say. I had to buckle in, and I had to start doing the part I hated. I had to reach out to the guests. I had to schedule, do all the tedious parts. And over time, I've gotten better at it to where now it's not that big of a deal. But I hated doing it originally. And it wasn't what I thought I was going to get into when I started. I just thought, oh, this will be great. I'll have a podcast. I talk to people. I'll be famous. I'll be like Joe Rogan. I'm sitting here having a great discussion. Boom, bang, there we go. And what I realized quickly is it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of competition out there. And there's a whole lot of steps to making it happen that no one thinks about. And so people hear the term, find your passion. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. How many of us have heard that? I have. And it's a myth. I don't care what you say. It's a myth. 9 times out of 10, the people who say that are older people who've experienced and done the work, and now they're at the point where they're doing the part that they enjoy. But rarely does everybody love every aspect of the work. They'll tell you when you talk to them, no, there's parts I hate about what I do. But I've done them enough to where I'm good at it and I enjoy it. And I enjoy trying to reach this outcome. That's the most important part. And the journey, I've learned to enjoy the journey to get there. So I would tell people trying to find their purpose, their passion, spend less time trying to find that passion. Pick something, work towards it. And if you really want it, you'll be consistent and you'll make it happen. Number 9, you don't know enough yet to know exactly what you want. Go get some experience first. And there's 2 examples that make me think of this, that kind of taught me this lesson, but made me really think about it. I have a friend who just recently did a bodybuilding show, also is a part of the fire academy, just got accepted to the fire academy, has always wanted to be a firefighter. I think originally he was going to go into college football, but plans changed, so he decided to shift gears, become a fireman. And nothing was for certain. Apparently, firefighting is a very competitive process. And he knew a little bit about it before he went in, but he really had to dive in deep and get focused in on it. And it was a grind. I saw the work that he put in, at least from the outside. But what I really appreciate about what he did was he reached out to people, whether that was on X. I know he reached out to a fair amount of people there, networking. He had some people in his local community and church that were also in firefighting. And so he reached out. He went on a few ride-alongs where he got to actually visit the fire department and see what it was like to be a firefighter. And I just thought that was really smart and a wise approach to something he was trying to decide if that was what he wanted to do as a career. And this is something that, he does want to do potentially for the next 30 years. And that's a really big, long-term picture there. And so the fact that he went and found people who were living that life and then gained a little bit of knowledge first, some experience first, he was able to then make bigger and better decisions that worked out in his favor. And so I think too often that we have people, and I've seen this myself, trying to do it backwards, to gain the experience then, or to get the outcome, then gain the experience. And it never works out well. You see that sometimes in jobs and offices in corporate America where someone gets promoted who definitely doesn't deserve that. And granted, I think people can rise to the occasion, right? If you get put in something, take a job that maybe you're a little underqualified for because you can work towards if you're willing to do it. But there's so many times you see people get promoted to a position that they have no qualifications for, and then they do a terrible job because they were kind of a person I had on the podcast called it golden handcuffs, and I like that term. They got put in a position where now they're handcuffed to this amazing thing that they have no experience for, but they can't tell anybody they don't have the experience because then it would show how they're underqualified. And that takes a lot of maturity, a lot of security to admit that you don't have the skill set, and then surround yourself with people who do, who can help make you look better and further the process. Number 10, you can't solve a doing problem by thinking harder. Most of us waste time overthinking things we just need to start doing. I don't care what you say, rumination is a disease. We have a population of people spending more time overthinking and trying to think their way out of things. And I'm not saying you don't have to use your brain. You have to use your brain to figure things out. But at the same time, how many times have we allowed faulty thought processes to derail us from achieving our goals? I'm guilty of it. I know a lot of people are. And I think the truth is we tend to overthink and ruminate because we're avoiding. It's a tactic to avoid what we really should be doing. 9 times out of 10, we know deep down what we should do to achieve that goal, to get that outcome, to solve that problem, to solve that relationship crisis, but we're avoiding it. And so we start to think and wonder and ruminate, and we start to come up with reasons in our process of ruminating for why that wouldn't work, or why I couldn't possibly do that. Or maybe they'll think I'm stupid, or maybe they'll see that I'm actually a fraud, or maybe, and then suddenly we've talked ourselves out of doing something. And the problems aren't solved by thinking, they're solved by doing. Yes, you need to put a plan together, but then it's the implementation of that plan that creates the momentum that gets you where you're trying to go. So stop ruminating. It doesn't lead anywhere. And this next one really fits into that. It's on average, it takes about 20 hours to get proficient at any skill, yet most of us take years to put in those hours. Once again, we don't appreciate how much work it's going to take to get where we're trying to go. And when the hard parts hit the road, when you have to actually do the difficult tasks that you either knew or didn't know coming into what you're working on, that's when it gets really challenging. And people will put off doing that work for so long. I remember when I was starting this podcast, I knew how to edit a little bit. I knew how to put videos together at a very low level. I'm definitely not an expert. But I didn't want to have to be the one to do it. I didn't want to have to be the one to sit down and edit my podcast and spend hours putting it all together. And so I would put it off. I would try to find somebody else to help out here or there. And I didn't want to learn the skill set of editing. And so I just spent time putting it off. I did the things I wanted to do, right? We talked about it a little bit earlier. And after a while, I realized no one was going to bail me out. Nobody was going to come save me. No one was going to do the effort I want. If I wanted this, I was going to have to put in the work. And once you accept that, it's actually a really freeing experience because you realize it's all on you. And that's good and bad, right? It's hard, but at least you can do it. At least you can solve it. You have control of yourself. I don't have control over my friend or the person editing my videos. Like if I have money, I could pay them. But once again, I have to go find the person to do it. I have to make sure they're legit. I have to make sure they actually do it. Are they just going to scam me? I don't know. But if it's on me, I can do that. But it requires me to force myself to do it and take accountability. And so once I realized no one was going to bail me out, no one was going to edit the videos for me, and I decided to buckle in and really figure out how to edit, it took about 20 hours to get proficient. And like I said, I'm no way an expert, but I learned how to do the skill, and now I can continue to do so. But how many people are putting off learning that ability and skill because they're scared, they have fears, they're ruminating on an issue, they just don't like it, and they could be so much better off and further down the path if they to put in the time. I remember when I was building that service missionary training program, and the hours it took creating and refining the process. And I had to reach out to a few people for help along the way. I had to inquire of mentors who helped me design things. But it took time. It took time building the learning modules and figuring out how we were going to give the best experience to that individual who came through our training. And it required us to sit down and spend the hours. And the truth was, prior to building those, I had spent time in that world, in that experience, learning about the different topics that would be helpful, actually being one of those missionaries. So I knew what they needed to experience so that they could do the best job. And so sometimes we don't realize the hours we're putting in behind the scenes. And that's going to lead me to my next number 12. But sometimes we don't realize all the work we're putting in is actually worth it in the end. And before I switch over, this is where focus becomes a big key. And I struggle with this. I'm going to be honest. I struggle to stay focused on one thing. I like different projects. I love ideas and I love exploring them. And so trying to siphon my time and get linear and focused on one thing becomes very challenging for me. And it's something I'm constantly trying to remind myself to do and work on. And I think a lot of people who are passionate about their work feel the same way. But this is why it becomes crucial when your time is split, it slows down the process. Imagine if you're trying to build a business and you have limited resources. You don't necessarily have a big budget to go hire different expertise. You have to be the one to figure it out, at least at the start. When you split your time amongst other things, if it takes 20 hours to become proficient at something, not even an expert, but proficient at a skill, well, think about how many skills you have to gain to become proficient, to push this, whatever you're working on, this new idea over the hill, to get it to that step where you're making a little money off it, or you've got enough funds to hire an employee who has an expertise. Think about how much time it takes. And so when you split up your time, especially when you're starting out like that, you don't have the resources, you're going to drain your time to where whether you like it or not, you're taking years to put in those 20 hours of work. And so people often talk about, and I think this is where I've fallen into the trap of thinking, oh, I have to have multiple streams of income. I have to have little side hustles. The truth is, if you're trying to build something of value, side hustles often are just more distractions. And usually you run to those side hustles to avoid doing the big work and the tasks that you're trying to not have to do, the hard stuff in the current endeavor and the current process and work you're doing. So I'm not a big fan of side hustles. I don't think they necessarily work. I think you can have things you're interested in and maybe in the background be just thinking about them, working on them, finding solutions. But I don't think side hustles necessarily work, especially when you're low on resources and you only have yourself to count on to move the ball forward. So this leads to number 12. Almost everyone wonders if what they're doing is worth it. I think people feel very alone in the process of building and doing and trying to succeed, especially when you're young. I think it's funny because there's so many of us out here who are young and trying to figure out our path and our purpose and our direction, and yet we feel so alone. And we feel like nobody understands what we're going through. Nobody gets us. Nobody has my exact experience. And truth be told is, I hate to break it to you, hard truth, you're not that unique. You're not that special. Everybody's going through something. And most people have experienced what you're experiencing, which is the loneliness. And if you're trying to do anything worthwhile, you're probably going to feel lonely at times because it's different. And I have a constant feeling of, is what I'm doing worth it? Am I making a mistake? Do I need to change paths? And I have to remind myself that everyone's felt this and it is worth doing. I just have to stay consistent. And it will pay off eventually. And I have to ask myself, I have to kind of check in with myself regularly and ask myself, do I really want this? Do I want what the perceived outcome for all this work? And every time I come back to yes, I do. So I just got to buckle in, stop whining and do the work. And I think going back to that missionary training program that I developed, I remember before I actually put that training program together, I wondered why. Why was I in this mission experience? Why was I dealing with all these different things? And why did I have this back complication that changed my trajectory in life? I asked a lot of those questions. I wondered why me? I think that question gets asked a lot. And I wondered if it was all worth it. Why was I going through this? There's got to be a purpose, I think, is what I wondered. And I think a lot of people wonder that when hardship hits. And it's about being able to bounce back, right? It's about being able to hold in there, stay mentally tough, and keep pushing forward to hopefully get a result. But I want to share a story, going back to the very beginning. When I first injured my back, I had about a year of just waiting to go do the things I wanted to do because I was trying to figure out how to solve the problem. And to keep a long story short, I just had this downtime where I was going to doctors and I was in pain. I was going to doctors back and forth, not really finding an answer. And for a year, I just felt like my life was on pause and I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't know why I was here. I didn't understand why I was having to work this job I didn't care about, why I was having to edit videos. That was the job I had. I was an editor, so I had to learn how to edit some content. And I didn't understand why. I didn't understand why I was doing marketing editing. I didn't really care about it. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I just saw a job I picked up. And I didn't see the value of the time that was being spent. Well, fast forward to now, I look at what the work I'm doing now and here and today, and those hours, that year of just feeling like I was wasting my time was actually such great preparation for where I am today. And I learned so many lessons and gained so many skills from just having to be still for a year and be forced, because of my back problem, because of the doctors where I couldn't necessarily move forward with my life, I have to be forced to just work this job I hated and learn these skills. And so I think everybody wonders if what they're doing is worth it. And I'll tell you, if you're trying your best and you're taking big swings and you're learning a skill and you're putting in effort, it's worth it. Because those things compound over time and they get you to somewhere where you're trying to go, and eventually you'll figure out what you want to do. If you don't know what it is yet, you'll gain experience. If you're trying your best, you'll gain experience where you figure something out and something clicks, an idea comes into your mind, and those experiences will fuel that idea, which then will give you that experience to help you accomplish it. And it will be worth it. You just have to take the time. You have to realize it takes time, and you have to keep working at it. Number 13, most of us know our parents tried their best and were quietly carrying some hurt from where they fell short. This one's a little bit of a change from what we've been talking about. I've talked to a lot of people on the program, and even myself in reflection with my own parents. I think it's hard to realize that the people in our life, our parents specifically, are just people too. They're people trying to figure out who they are, what they're doing with their life, what mark do they want to leave on the world? And it's funny because I know all these thoughts and ideas that I have. Who do I want to be? Where do I want to take my life? I have aspirations. Am I going to achieve them? Am I going to get married to that hot chick? Am I going to have a good family? Am I going to X, Y, Z, right? We have all these things where we wonder and think about. Yet when it comes to our parents, because they were always there from the very beginning, where we, since our origination, they are the origin point. Since they've been there from the very beginning, we don't really view them in that light because they were always providing for us. And I think sometimes we forget that they're humans too, that they have their own concerns, worries, defects, problems, ideas. And so a lot of times as we get older, we realize that as we've gained some perspective, that they tried their best. They were trying to figure it out too. But deep down, we probably have some things that we're carrying that we wish they would have done better. Wish they would have given us a few more hugs, maybe some more encouragement. Wish they would have taken us on a vacation or two more. Wish they would have taught us a skill. Wish they would have told us more. Whatever it is, right? We have these things that we hold on to. And it's more of an observation than a learning lesson. I think I'm still learning this lesson, so that's why I don't want to say it's fully learned. But it's an observation that I think everybody has that when they really think about it. And the real question is, can you be mature enough really to realize that they're just a human being and you are as well, and that we're all trying to get there? And obviously I have a great family. and they've been very supportive of me. And there's a lot of people out there who don't have that. And so if this isn't necessarily your situation, I want to respect that. And everybody has it different. Some people have maybe parents who are abusive, and maybe you're going through that. This is based off my experience and some of the people I've talked to. And so I think it's okay to feel hurt from people around you and want more, but also realize that they're people as well. And I think there's a fine line. Like I said, this is more of an observation than an actual lesson learned. I think I'm still learning this lesson. And I think we all are as we're growing and getting older. But seeing them for who they are, seeing that they're a person, I think makes a huge difference. Number 14, when chasing anything big, focus on who more than what. But that means controlling less and picking great people to work with. I've been kind of confronted with this recently because I'm trying to do a lot of projects, especially with my nonprofit. We've got a huge year coming up, some big events, a cool hiking experience in August. I mean, we just got so many fun things. I'm excited to actually announce it. I won't talk about too much here, but I'm excited for what's coming. And the truth is, I realized quickly I can't be the only one running this if I'm going to do it. If I'm going to do it right, I can't be the only one. And so then it became, well, how do I get people involved? I think people want to be a part of something. I think people forget that. They think, oh, no one would ever want. No, they do. People want to be a part. They just need to know what they need to be a part of, and they need to feel like you've emboldened them to do so. You know, if you go to them and you ask and you treat if you go to them and you treat your idea as if it's just some silly, stupid thing, they're going to think of it as a silly, stupid thing too. If you don't believe in what you're doing, if you're not the biggest champion of what you're doing, how are they supposed to be? It's not their idea. So you have to go embolden them and then make them feel like they have a purpose in being there. You know, yes, money can be a driving factor, but I don't think that's a great driving factor. I think that's a very minimal driving factor. Everybody needs money. Everybody needs the money to survive. So if you offer money, people will come in and do the job, but they'll do the bare minimum unless they feel like they have a purpose. If you go to them and tell them, I was thinking about this idea for a long time, and as I was thinking through all the people I needed for this to happen, I thought of you. Here's why I thought of you. Here's what I need from you. And what do you think about it? Because I want to hear your opinion. It's a game changer. Total different experience. Now they feel like they're part of the process and they are wanted. That you need them to make this happen. And they're part of, they are now invested in what you've come to them with. Not everyone will say yes, but I think you'll get a lot more people to come along on the journey with you if you do so. And the hard part is there's a lot of bad eggs in a basket. Sometimes it's not a good fit, and sometimes you make the wrong choice, and that's something you have to maneuver as well, because bad people on your team can really derail the process. And so it just takes a little bit of experience. It takes time. You want people who know what you're doing, and you got to realize it's going to take time to get them on board and get them in place. But if you do so, you'll get a lot more accomplished. I love the phrase, you can go solo and get there faster, but if you go together, you'll get further. And I think that there's truth in that. You can only sprint for so long. But you see those races, right? You do a relay race. They can go for a long time because you're working as a team. Number 15. Achieving real goals always costs more work than you expect. Be ready to pay the price. I think we've talked about this a lot, but I truly believe this. You never really know the price you're going to pay to accomplish anything. And when you do get something that comes pretty easy, it's like, wow, what a shock, right? Because 9 times out of 10, the things you're working towards are going to cost a big price. You're going to have to work so hard to make it happen. And even if you have a lot of leverage, and leverage being you have more pull to accomplish what you're trying to do, right? Like less effort was required to achieve that goal. It still takes a lot of work to even get that leverage. And I think experience helps with that a lot. The more you've done it, the more leverage you have, the more people you know, the more connections you have come in contact with. But once again, you had to do the work to get that. So there's not really a getting out of this crazy loop called work and sacrifice and effort. And I just want to really hit that home. I think that's something that I've had to really take on this year and remind myself this year. And so it's been a big highlight in my 2025 lessons that you are not going to get out of the work. You have to put in the effort. And I think for me, I'm someone who has always thought, oh, I can find a way to get someone else involved, or I can decrease, I can be involved in more because I can. And yes, there are techniques and ways to do so, but that takes work too. Because now you got to bring someone else in to help do that task that you were already doing, and that takes your time. And then once you set them up, they might hit a snag, so then you have to teach them again. And so whatever you're doing, work is required. And so if you realize it up front and realize that's just the price you're going to pay for it, and ask yourself, is that worth the price? You're going to set yourself up, one, for success because you knew in advance, and two, you're probably going to get there a lot faster because you set an expectation that's going to take longer and require more than you ever thought, and you might get there just a little bit faster. Number 16, you've probably spent more time figuring out how to avoid the work than it would have taken to just do the task. I am so guilty of this. I try to find people who can help me in the process for two reasons. One, I like doing things with a team. I like working. I like the collaboration. I like feeling together. Obviously, it's got to be the right people. But at the same time, I also want to be involved in a lot of things. And so I try to find ways to offload the work. And you hear about this online a lot, about outsourcing this, outsourcing that. And that's fine. I think you can do it. But once again, that requires resources, that requires money, it requires time to find the right person. And so it's not as easy as people think. And I think a lot of people, especially starting out, trying to find your purpose, trying to find your passion, your goal, your path, they try to find ways to outsource the responsibilities for two reasons. One, they don't want to put in the effort and pay the price that we just talked about before. And two, they want to offload the responsibility of failure. Because if I outsource it to my friend, if I give it to my family member, then if it doesn't go right, I can see that and go, well, I wasn't the one who did it, so it wasn't really my fault. And what a lame move, in my opinion. If you're going to try and get something worth having, take the responsibility on, take it head on, take accountability. And even, this is just for anyone running a business, starting a business, doing a business, be willing to take accountability even when it's not your fault. Take the accountability because one, you're protecting your team. They know you'll stand up with them. And two, when you take accountability, you can control the factors and you can go, this is how I can do better in the future. And that's what makes a leader. That's what leads to progress. Number 17, a lot of people fear that having kids will lock them into permanence forever, like saying goodbye to freedom, spontaneity, or personal dreams. But take a longer view, the kind you get from talking to folks who've lived full lives, and it flips. Kids and family aren't the things that trap you. They're the thing that ends up mattering most when everything else fades. Like I said, I got married this year. And, marriage was something that I always knew I'd get married at some point, wanted to get married at some point, but it wasn't something I took too seriously. I think a lot of guys are guilty of this, where they feel like that's so far out there, I'll deal with it when it comes. And so when it did happen, it was very natural. It happened very naturally. Met my spouse now, and we just started dating. And I didn't put too much pressure on myself to have it all figured out. I think she, not a big fan of that, actually. Not a fan of how I handled it. I think she wishes I would have spent a little more time, put a little more effort in. But I had just taken the approach that if it was meant to be, it would happen. And I really liked that I did that. I think it kept me in a place of feeling very secure and just moving the ball forward slowly but surely and making the right and smart choices in the relationship. But when you're working towards something, it's hard to imagine adding a responsibility like children into the mix. So in saying that, I think people who are very passionate, working towards a goal, hyper-focused on what they're trying to achieve, it's really hard to imagine adding another factor, another responsibility like children into the mix. And that's something I've always struggled with, wondering, do I want kids? I see other family members. I have relatives with children, and I like them. Don't get me wrong. I like those little kids. They're nice. They're fun. But it's like a dog, right? I like the cute guy. I love to give him a little pet, but then it's like, send it back to its owner, right? And not saying children are like dogs. That's not what I'm trying to say. But very similarly, when I have cousins, I have family members. When I I like to hang out with them. I like to play with them. But then I like to send them back to their parents and go, they're kind of screaming a little bit. Yeah, Johnny's picking boogers again. Yeah, it's your problem, not mine, right? And and so I've just always asked myself, is that something I really want? Is that worth it? And I think in my head, I've always known at some point, yes, that will come along. But you can say at some point a lot in your life, and a couple more years pass, and a few more years pass, and then next thing you know, you're 50 years old, and life's moved on, right? And not saying you can't have kids at 50, but so it's been really inspiring talking to these older couples who have more life experience than me, and I've probably had 20 older couples on the podcast recently this year. And like I said, I hope everyone enjoys the podcast. I really do, because the podcast, if anything, it's a selfish endeavor at times, because it's been me trying to gain an understanding on life and share experiences, hopefully that are engaging for everyone listening and watching. And thank you for watching and listening. But also topics and guests that I am going to be engaged with, because I hope that if I'm engaged by them, you will too. And so these couples I've had on, every time I talk to them and I ask them, what was the successes in life? What really moved the needle in your life when all was said and done? What's the advice you give the future generation? What would you give me to take away from today? And every time it always came back to three things: faith, family, and fulfillment. Those three things, the three F's: faith, family, and fulfillment. Have a foundation of faith to rely upon for the hard times to get you through life, whatever faith that is. Build a family, because those are the people that really count and matter, and you'll hold on to as you get older and life moves on. Those are the ones that stick around. And do things that are fulfilling in your life. Give back to people, serve, spend time with family, give of yourself. And I was taken aback, because I thought for sure out of all these older couples, someone would have a different tune, and every single one was the same. And so after seeing and hearing that multiple times, and you start to kind of build a graph in your mind of, okay, like, what's the ratio here? And with all of them 100% saying the same thing, I had to really ask myself and go, you know what, maybe there's something more to this than we really think. Maybe we're so early on in life caught on these worldly things, the money, the fame, the attention, the house, that we forget that the things that really matter are a lot more simple. Starting a family, doing fulfilling things, making memories, spending time. And I'm not saying to give up all those, give up your dreams and your goals for just to move on and give up, because those don't matter. They do. They're important. Go achieve things. Go make it happen. But don't leave out these simple things that really matter in the long run. And that was a great reminder for me. And something, especially now where kids in a family is something I'm actively looking towards in the future, it makes a big difference. Number 18, gaining perspective will set you free. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory, especially after the one I just talked about in number 17. But people ahead of us can give us perspective. You can borrow perspective. The unfortunate part is they say hindsight's 20/20. Looking back, you can always see, oh, this is what I would have done, and I could have done so much better this way. And I think the goal is as long as you're learning from those and adding to your perspective to make better choices, you're on the right path. But I will say you can definitely increase that by talking to others and gaining more perspectives to add to your vision, because that will always help. Number 19, fail hard and fail fast. The ability to pivot quickly is a killer talent. I love what Jeff Bezos says. He talks about being stubborn on the vision, but flexible on the details. And what I just have always loved that saying, because it feels so real and intangible. We sometimes get so stuck on every little detail of how we're going to do, and we totally blow up the whole path. And it's like, you gotta have where you're going for sure. If that changes, you're gonna get lost. But how you get there can shift and change, because you're gaining experience, and not everything's set in stone. Everybody's path is a little unique, and when you're willing to fail and fail quickly and then pivot, I mean, you're gonna make so much more progress quickly. Um, if you spend time constantly wondering and waiting for the perfect moment to strike, that moment will never come. There is no such thing as a perfect moment. And so take the opportunity to try something new, fail hard, learn the lesson, and adapt. I can't remember what the phrase was exactly, but people talked about when you speak about people being, um, smart and not dumb. The ability to be smart was really the ability to adapt quickly and the ability to learn the lesson quickly. So, for example, if I smack Johnny in the face and then I smack Jimmy in the face, and the next time I go to smack Johnny in the face, he dodges, he's pretty smart. He picked up quickly. He learned the lesson fast. But then I go to smack Jimmy again, and he just stands there and gets whacked in the face again. Well, he's kind of dumb because he knew it was coming, he didn't adapt. And so if it takes Jimmy 30 times to learn that he should dodge me slapping him in the face, well, he's probably a little slow. And so my point is that if you, whether you're smart or dumb or whatever, you may think, I'm not a very smart person. Well, the truth is you just probably need more experiences to gain and learn the lesson to be smarter. You know what I'm saying? So the more times you fail more, and you'll learn the lesson faster. That's the only difference. And some people pick it up more quickly than others, and depending on what skill set, that changes for every person. But there's something to be said about the person who can fail hard, fail fast, pick themselves back up, and then change quickly and pivot quickly. And I think that's a skill set. I think that's something that's learned. And it's learned through learning how to fail. The truth is that I'll take it right away. I'm more than happy to be the biggest loser. There's been so many times where I've lost. I wouldn't say that I'm I'm very average. I wouldn't say I'm super smart, didn't get amazing grades. I wouldn't say that I'm a great writer or I wouldn't say I'm great at anything. But one thing I've always been happy to do is I've always been more than happy to lose. I don't have this need or desire to constantly win or constantly succeed. I like it. Don't get me wrong. I don't like losing. I like succeeding. But I have no fear of failing. And maybe that's because I've failed a lot and I've had a lot of humiliating moments, and eventually you just kind of get callous to it and you go, I don't give a frick what these people think. But I have no problem being a loser. And I think people who aren't afraid to lose because they see it as a learning opportunity, they get a lot further because they're willing to fail and fail and fail, and eventually they succeed. Number 20. People's attitudes, reactions, and how they treat you usually say more about them than about you. Don't take it too personally. People can be really mean, and they can mistreat you, and they don't understand you. And a lot of times they say things that come out the wrong way and are mean. And sometimes I think we take it really to heart, and it can affect the trajectory we're going. You know, how many times have maybe you were already feeling a little insecure about something you're working on, and then somebody came in and told you something that made you feel even more insecure about it. And maybe they didn't even mean it in that way. And then suddenly you take a different path. And I think we've got to realize that people are thinking about themselves, okay? People know themselves the best. They don't know other people the best. You know yourself. And people are most often worried about themselves. We sometimes think that everyone's looking at us, and the truth is nobody is. And so don't take it too personally when people mistreat you. I think it's a true sign of their character and where they're at in their life. And if you can start to adapt that, you'll have a lot more understanding and maybe grace for people. And you can forgive them and move on quickly, but don't necessarily forget, because a lot of times those habits will repopulate. And as long as you know that, and you can see it in the next person that comes along who has that trait and realize them for who they are, you'll be a lot smarter, you'll be a lot happier, and you'll be able to make wise choices about who you spend time with. But don't take it personally. If you have something that you need to correct about yourself, do that. But a lot of times people are just showing you the true reflection of who they are. And once you can read that and see that, you start to be a little bit more choosy about who you spend your time with. Number 21, almost done. I'm stuck because I lack clarity. is a phrase that gets used, but the truth is you lack clarity because you're stuck. You don't fix inaction with more ideas. We've kind of hammered this home, but once again, I don't think you clear things up by by thinking your way out of it. You do it by taking action, gaining experience, so you have a book of experience to turn to when you're not sure and look at and go, yeah, I have the experience to back that up. Clear communication cures a ton of problems. Practice and watch things smooth out. I can't tell you how many people are terrible at communicating. They get involved in their own lives. They get involved in whatever they're doing, so they don't share. And we all live off these devices. And so the need to communicate has greatly adapted and changed. And you can't convey emotion in a text message. I don't care what you say. A smiley face is not really conveying the emotion. And so it really makes for I feel bad for the upcoming, like people younger than me. I wouldn't say I'm old, so I don't want to say like the upcoming generation, but I feel bad for people younger than me because they don't have nearly the same exposure to being forced to talk to people. The ability to have to sit down face to face with an adult and have a conversation at a young age, I think that's valuable. It's so important. The being forced to go and ask a girl out on a date and have to feel the embarrassment. How easy is it to reject someone over a text? It's super easy. You don't have to face them. You just say, no, not interested. Or you don't respond. That's where ghosting has come up. Like, it's so easy. But imagine having to go sit across from that person, ask them face to face, and then they have to reject you. Totally different experience. It's not as easy. So I think people are missing out on experiences and opportunities, one, to learn the skill of communication. And you know, I come from a family where communication is sometimes dysfunctional. And I think that the ability to calmly communicate an idea and how you're feeling and then respond back is so important. I had the opportunity to take some great therapy classes, relationship therapy before me and my wife got married. We actually got to do it for a few classes, and the couple that did it with us, the therapists, they were just great. And they really, it was not really necessarily them counseling us. In some ways it was, but it was more them sharing their experiences and then asking us questions that we could then ask each other. And just that act of us actively talking and me asking her what her goals were, her asking me what my goals were, it was such a great experience, and it was so eye-opening. Things that we had never thought about, even though we felt like we knew each other really well, were discussed and opened, and it was a clear channel. There were no emotions. There was no hurt feelings. It was just freely expressing what your thoughts were. And the truth is that people have ideas and thoughts all the time. That doesn't necessarily mean that they know what they're saying. Sometimes you have to express it, and you have to ask and understand. And so the ability to sit down and clearly communicate can really solve a lot of problems. There are so many things ruined by people's inability to communicate and clearly share what they're thinking. And so the more you work on it, the more you practice it, the better you become naturally, and you'll just solve a lot of problems early on. Number 23, our greatest strengths are often our biggest weaknesses. Check yourself so your superpowers don't become pitfalls. I think we all have some things we're just innately better at. We have that skill we were born with, or you were raised in an environment where that skill was enhanced. And sometimes we lean on that skill so much, it becomes our crutch. And these other things that we aren't good at, we avoid. And so that strength is actually our pitfall. Whether it's because we're leaning on it so much that we avoid becoming better at other things, or because it's so enhanced that everything around us, it's like tunnel vision. It gets avoided. So for example, I might have the great ability of hyper-focusing. I can focus so good on whatever it is. Maybe it's basketball. I'm so focused on basketball. That's the best thing but everything else around you gets avoided. Maybe you're a terrible communicator. You're terrible in relationships. You can't clean. You don't know how to cook. You don't know how to... Okay, so you're super great at basketball, but now all these other things around you have fallen apart. And so I think being a good human being, but also a good business person, a good communicator, all those things, I think it requires us to realize that we may have some super strengths, but we also have some super weaknesses. And the ability to be the best form of ourselves is to look at ourselves in the mirror and go, this super strength has caused me to be super weak in these areas, and I got to balance that out. And that takes reflection, it takes time, and it requires us to put our ego aside a little bit. And I've had to do that a lot this year. Even in my, I'll just be honest, even in my relationship, there's times where I think that I have it all figured out, and my wife is very good at letting me know that I do not. And not in a bad way, in a good way, in a reflective way that makes me better. And I think that's part of life, being able to put that aside. And I every day I have to put the ego away and realize that I'm not perfect. I don't have it all figured out. And that is the process of life. I think it's super hard because we want to feel like we're at a place where it's evened out, where we've made it, right? We've hit the peak. We can sit and watch the scenery and be excited by it, and we've made it, right? Life is good. We've succeeded. That's what we all want. But the problem is that those peaks are really more just lookouts. The journey never ends. And that can be kind of a daunting thought that like, oh my gosh, this never ends. But in reality, it's just a process. And so being able to look yourself in the mirror and grow through the discomforts, the strengths and the weaknesses, it's just a great thing. And you got to realize that it's a journey. Life is a journey. Number 24, capacity and ability only grow through discomfort. Get used to it, learn to appreciate it, and the whole experience changes. I have always been astonished when it comes to capacity, because you can be, I think everyone can relate to this. You can be someone who's working 3 jobs, has 4 kids, dealing with a heart issue, and then you turn over to your friend and you're like, oh, what's going on with you? And they're going, oh, I'm so busy. My life is so hard and I've got so much going on. And obviously we don't know exactly all the details, but this is just so, my life is just falling apart. And you ask them what they're doing and they're like, well, I just was so hard today because I got woken up early at 11 a.m. and then my laundry, my laundry system, what is it called? The washing machine, it just broke, and life's so hard because then the guy, he didn't come when I answered the phone. I'm going to have to wait a day to get my laundry cleaned, and life is so hard, and it's just so difficult, and I can't believe my life's turned out like this. And so meanwhile, you're over here with so much going on, and this person you're talking to, it feels like, at the very least, has literally nothing going on. Yet their life, they've acted like their life is in ruins. And I've had a fair amount of people, and I think everyone does. We have people in our life who you see that and you go, why is your life so hard? Or you complain like your life is so hard, yet I'm doing 10 times as much as you, and I don't necessarily think it's as hard as you think yours is. And I tell you, that is a capacity problem. That is a capacity to live your life. And capacity is built, and it's built through discomfort. And so the more experiences that you've gone through, the more that you take on, the more responsibilities you acquire and then succeed at or work through, you're going to build up a resistance to that. It's just like going to the gym. The more strain on your muscles you do, the more times you hit the reps and go to the gym, the bigger the muscles are going to get, the more comfortable you get with the soreness of the muscles, and the more capacity you can do, the more weight you can lift, the more times you can go to train, and you build up that resistance. And it's no different in anything in life. And so people who just like people who are new at the gym, 2026 resolutioners out there, if you go to the gym and it's your first time, you're going to be sore. It's going to suck. You're going to not want to go back for a couple days. But the question is, do you force yourself to get back in the gym the next day and work at it? It's not going to be easy. And that's the real kicker here. But if you're wondering why somebody next to you doesn't have a bigger capacity, or why they complain about everything, or why the drop of a dime freaks them out, it's because they haven't pushed themselves through that discomfort to gain the capacity. So if you have it, be appreciative of it. It's a rare skill. Not everybody has it. And if you don't have it, go do something uncomfortable today and start to gain it. And last but not least, number 25, Pick a partner who's been through adversity and came out better. They'll be your anchor when life gets hard. I don't think I would have gained the skill had I not gone married this year because I hadn't picked a partner up to that point. I'd gone out and I dated lots of women because I try to practice what I preach, especially when it comes to communication. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy talking to people. And I just like anything in life, and this is something I don't think people appreciate. Finding a partner, dating, relationships, it's no different than anything else you're working towards. If you don't do the work, you're not going to get the reward. And so if you're not actively out socializing, going on lots of dates, gaining experience, how on earth could you ever pick a good spouse? Maybe you luck out. Maybe the first person you go out with, they're just the best person on planet Earth and it works out great and you guys mesh to the max and you love her family, they love yours. But that's pretty rare. And that's why we have a 50% divorce rate in this country, because people don't want to put in the effort. They want the quick results. They want the sex. They want the sleep together. They want all those things, but they don't want to put in the actual effort of meeting the person, getting to know them, seeing what they're like, seeing their upbringing, seeing what their dreams and goals and aspirations are. Do they match what yours are? They don't want to do any of that. And they haven't put the work in to experience it. And I think that starts young. It starts early in life in your teenage years when you're getting to know people. If you don't do it then, it just gets harder. Because once you get into your 20s and 30s, like that's game time. That's when you actually have to start making decisions about marriage and relationships and stuff like that. And so if you don't put in the effort now, it's not gonna get any easier. But one lesson I learned from all the people I dated and meeting my wife was you need to have somebody who's been through some stuff, who's built that capacity, who's been through the discomfort and can ride the ups and downs with you. If you're expecting a smooth ride through your entire life and that's what your spouse is expecting, well then guess what, buddy? You have to be the one to provide that smooth ride for her. And when you don't, that's when she says bye-bye, because you didn't provide the smooth ride. So you need to find a partner who's been through some stuff, who's been through it and is not looking for you to provide the smooth ride through life for her. And when you do that, now you can be a partnership. Now you can turn to her when you're having a hard day, or vice versa. I'm using a guy and girl, but if you're a girl and a guy, like either way, right? You can turn to them when you're having a bad day and really going through it. And they can be your anchor, right? They can help hold you down and go, no, this is the right path. Yes, what you're working on does matter. I support you in this. They can be that person and vice versa. But if they're looking for someone to just make their life easy, well, guess what? You're never going to have that. Because when you're having a hard day, guess what? That's not their job. That's not their job to solve that for you. That's your job. Your job's to make their life easier. If you're having a crappy day, your boss fires you, guess what? Better get that job back. Better start making that money. Because it's not their job to solve that. It's not their job to go make some money. That's yours. It's your job to make sure they have money for their nails appointment. It's your job to make sure they can go to that spa day. I need to get a girl analogy in here because I'm sounding awfully sexist. But my point is that you need to find somebody who really pushes you to be the best version of yourself. And that takes someone with grit. That takes someone who's been through stuff and can make it happen. Life is the best teacher. Experience is the best teacher. And if they've not had any experiences because the mommy and daddy did everything for them, because mommy and daddy bought the car, paid for the lifestyle, guess what? You're now mommy and daddy. And not in the way you want. It ain't daddy in a good way. It's daddy in a bad way. Daddy is not coming home to roost. Yeah, you are now a father, not daddy. And so that's one thing I'm so grateful in my relationship, that I've been able to find someone who's been through hardship, who's been through adversity. And I'm not saying that, find someone who's been through like abuse or something. Like, I'm not saying you got to find someone who's like been a prisoner of war, but they need to have experienced life enough to know what really matters, what value it really is. And of course, as time goes on, you'll grow and learn together, but do the work, take the experience, and find people who really will push you to be your best self. And I think if there was anything I can tie this all together, it's those three things. It all comes back to those three things: faith, family, and fulfillment. You need to have a foundation. You need to have core beliefs that help push you past all the things you're working on. You need to have people in your life you can count on, and people who've been through real stuff who can support you and can communicate with you. And you need to do things that really fulfill you, that you can go, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to work hard. I can push past the adversity and the hardships and the struggles and do what it takes when I don't want to. When everyone else is quitting, I can hang in there. And those three things are going to be key in your life and make the biggest difference. I'm so excited for 2026. I'm excited for the lessons I learned, and I hope that you take the time to look through what lessons were you taught in 2025. If you don't make 2026 a new year, it'll just be another year. And so you got to take the time to really know, what did I learn in 2025 that I can apply into 2026 to be the best version of myself in 2026 and hopefully learn even more and accomplish even more. I surely appreciate everyone who's been a part of this journey in 2025, helping make this happen. I hope to do even more and give more value back to you guys. You guys make it all worth it. I hope you have a great 2026. Let's make it happen.